Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source for Black news, views, and opinions. Happy Friday. Today is September 30th, and I'm Mimi Brown.
And I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo. And on today's report, Joe Biden's plan to help millions of student loan borrowers by forgiving their student loans. Well, a new lawsuit is stepping in the way in an attempt to stall the process. Meanwhile, a year after the death of Dante Wright, a new proposal is created to ban the exact traffic stop that killed him. We have more on that story. Then a racial justice demonstrator says that Portland police used excessive violence in 2020 in a new lawsuit. The outcome will determine the level of liability the city faces on cases that are similar.
Plus, journalist Marcellus Reynolds stops by to discuss the evolution of black supermodels. And it's Friday, so you know we have the most trending stories, but with a side eye with comedian Damon Williams. We have all of that and so much more. This is Our Voice and Our Truth, so let's get it.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. We start today with news on President Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. 6 Republican-led states are filing a lawsuit to stop the Biden administration from forgiving federal student loans. Now, last month, the president announced he'd cancel at least $10,000 worth of debt. Now, a lawsuit filed in Mississippi court argues that that plan oversteps executive powers and does not address the effect the pandemic has had on loan borrowers. Now, this is the second legal challenge this week. And also what I wanted to add is actually that there are 7 states. So we know that it's Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, South Carolina, Arkansas, and Arizona just joined, becoming the 7th state to sue the Biden administration over student loan debt. They're saying because of the lawsuit, so basically what's happening now, the Biden administration is amending who is eligible for student loan forgiveness, and about 770,000 people are no longer eligible because of some of these states and what they're suing for. So borrowers whose loans are backed by the federal government but owned by private banks are no longer eligible for debt consolidation or debt cancellation. So that is about 770,000 people. Their argument is, quote, Biden's cancellation plan is not remotely tailored to address the effects of the pandemic, as required by the 2003 federal law that the administration is using to back that justification. So they're pointing out that Biden, in an interview with 60 Minutes, basically he said the pandemic is over. And so when he said the pandemic is over, that basically meant that the justification that you're using to forgive student loans is no longer valid. So therefore, how can people be in need of help, financial help, if the pandemic is now, in fact, over?
This is very interesting, Mimi. You know, I always love me some good student loan debt forgiveness conversation. And so they say that no statute, like you said, permits for him to unilaterally relieve millions of individuals from their obligation to pay student loans they voluntarily assumed. And that is what boiled my blood to no end. How are you to say that we are supposed to not have access to get student loan debt relief? We assume those student loans, but however, we are working jobs, especially black women. I want to talk to about us for a minute. We are working double, triple because, no, let me go back. We had to go to school, sometimes 2 schools, back to back in order to get a job. This is what we thought we were going to be able to do. We only work these, excuse me, let me go, I have a point. What I'm trying to say, because it really gets me upset, I'm sorry. What I'm trying to say here is that we went to school, sometimes 2 schools, right? Back to back, because we thought that is what we had to do in order to secure a job after we go to school. And that is what I'm trying to say is, how are you to say that we just assume these student loans? I didn't even know what I was doing, honestly, when I was filling out my FAFSA form. My mom took on student loans for me as well, just to get me through college. So she also has student loan debt that needs to be forgiven as well. And it just really upsets me that so many disconnected individuals are speaking on something that you didn't have to go through. You didn't even have to get student loan debt. You had probably had an heir to the throne or whatever. Not every white person did, but you know what I'm saying? Like, they don't have to go through the same struggles that we have to go through. You didn't even have to get student loan debt. So you can't even speak on this conversation.
I feel your passion. That's why we're letting you talk about it, because it's 100% true.
Yes.
No, what you're saying is true. And here's the situation. Now we have people that are being affected, that you said that these people that are arguing about it, they don't have to worry about it. They never had these problems. They never had these issues. Now you're getting in the way of someone being helped. There was people needing help with student loans before the pandemic. So let's just take the pandemic out of the equation. People need help to get out out of the red so they can give back to the economy, back to their community, and this is just another way to stop. In all 7 states you named, I think they're all red states.
Yeah.
So that says it all, soulmates. Says it right there.
That is.
Thanks, Romeo and Mimi.
we understand.
Because I have $70,000 in student loan debt that needs to be forgiven. That how dare you come and try to get in the way of me getting my measly $10,000 to help break that down. You know?
Absolutely.
Whew, okay, so speaking of boiling water, the boil water advisory in Jackson, Mississippi may have been lifted earlier this month, but the NAACP is refusing to let Mississippi officials off the hook for their role in the city's water crisis. Earlier this week, the NAACP filed a federal complaint with the Environmental Protection Agency alleging that Mississippi's mishandling of Jackson's water crisis violated residents' rights under the Civil Rights Act of 1964. As you may remember, in August, heavy rainfall overwhelmed one of the city's 2 water treatment plants, causing the entire water system to shut down. So for weeks, residents were without running water to drink, bathe, wash their dishes, or even brush their teeth. It wasn't until mid-September that the state officially ended the boil water advisory, signaling that the water should be clean enough to use again. Again, we talked about this. We've been talking about this since it became news. Being able to brush your teeth, being able to bathe your child and take a shower is something that I will honestly, I'll take for granted. I run the shower water, letting it get hot before I get into the shower, not thinking about there's someone that is literally attempting to boil water and rid it of all the pollutants just to take a shower. And you have people in the city who are not even, stealing money from the welfare, but also you have people in the city that just don't even care. This is a big issue, a very big issue.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right, Demi. It is, and I'm glad the NAACP, I'm glad the Justice Department, I'm glad that all of our checks and balances are staying on the state of Mississippi, because we've seen and we've talked about here, as you just mentioned, we've got the issue with Brett Favre, we've got the issue with the Republican-led administration in Mississippi misusing funds that should have gone to the people, and we wouldn't be in this situation right now.
Exactly.
So I'm really glad the NAACP is not letting up, and we'll see what happens. As long as they continue to fight for the people, because we cannot continue to allow, our American cities, because this is America, right? Our American cities, not to even, take black out of the equation for a second, right? Everyone deserves clean water, access to clean water. It's just basic 101. So, we'll see what happens. But again, kudos to the NAACP for saying all this.
You need water for pretty much everything.
Anything.
Everything and anything. So this is a no-brainer. And again, it's 2022 and we're dealing with the situation. These are forgotten cities and small counties that are filled with people of color that they just don't want to keep up to par. They don't want to make sure things are remaining to be safe for them, make sure things are completed so they don't break down. We have this problem all across our country. We do understand that. So for this to happen in 2022, I'm glad the NAACP is coming forward saying, look, this is a problem. How do we make sure we get it fixed so it doesn't happen again?
And it needs to be rectified ASAP, Romeo and Mimi, because you have hurricanes now that are popping up in other cities and states, that so many more states and cities are going to need national help in the coming days, in the coming weeks after this is handled. Let's get this taken care of so that the next cities and states that come after, they can be given the same amount of care and love after their world disaster as well.
I agree. All right, well, the Biden administration is unveiling a plethora of fresh initiatives in an $8 billion plus plan to eliminate hunger and minimize diet-related diseases and inequities. The list includes officially endorsing the food as medicine theory. According to reports, the White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health will make recommendations for a pilot program to include medically tailored meals or meals that are personalized to one taste and medical needs in Medicare Advantage plans. The last conference of this kind was conducted more than 50 years ago during the Nixon administration and resulted in extension of food stamps and other food assistance programs.
And in Washington, D.C., Mayor Muriel Bowser is taking steps to help homeless people in her city. The new Career Mobility Act will invest $25 million to help 600 low-income families in the district transition to housing. For up to 5 years, the city will give families up to $10,000 in cash, as well as career guidance to help them find housing. They will also get monthly $200 in savings deposit. Now, Washington has had an estimate of 4,400 homeless people in the city, That's a 17-year low, but Mayor Muriel Bowser says that number is still too low.
In the coming weeks, some California families will get up to $1,050 to help ease the pain of inflation. The tax board is calling the one-time payment the middle class tax refund. The payments are expected to arrive by direct deposit as early as October 7th. In all, $9.5 billion will be sent out to 17 million households.
A year after the images of U.S. Border Patrol agents on horseback whipping Haitian immigrants in the Rio Grande River, Amnesty International says the situation for Haitian migrants in the U.S. has not improved. The group's latest human rights report, titled "They Did Not Treat Us Like Humans," details how U.S. authorities have subjected Haitian asylum seekers to arbitrary detention and humiliation. They call it race-based torture. The reports say it was yet another chapter in America's history of anti-black racism.
And people of color make up 67% of those stopped for minor traffic offenses nationwide. And just over a year and a half after the death of Daunte Wright, a Minnesota city is introducing a ban to propose to stop those stops. The Community Safety and Violence Prevention Implementation Committee has been working on a recommendation for altering police policies. The committee has now recommended that police in Brooklyn Center, which is about 8 miles from Minneapolis, be prohibited from stopping vehicles for minor traffic infractions.
And Denver School Board is approving a charter school in the city that will be centered around African-American students and the culture. The board decision comes after the idea was rejected in the past. The school, which is scheduled to open next fall, comes with some conditions. Now, the board has required that the Freedom School must fill all of its open seats in its very first year. Denver schools are funded per pupil, which has delayed the opening of another charter school in the city. Many of those schools did not have enough students to enroll in that school.
The first civil suit alleging Portland police used excessive violence against a 2020 racial justice demonstrator opened earlier this week before a jury. Civil rights attorneys are paying close attention because the outcome could answer questions about the potential liability the city faces over similar cases. The killings of George Floyd by Minneapolis police officers in late May of 2020 sparked protests as part of a worldwide reckoning over racial injustice. In Portland, racial justice protesters clash nightly with police and federal law enforcement from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Marshal Service. Yeah, this will be interesting how this plays out. You do recall how they were grabbing people by their head, forcing, throwing them to the ground, hitting them with batons. I mean, for no reason. Even when they were listening to what the officer was saying, going by their instructions, following their instructions, they were still being frowned upon, still being called certain names, still being hit and thrown to the ground. So we will see how this plays out, and this could have an effect on what goes on across the country too.
Absolutely. The amount of pain she received in her body, broken arms and injuries, I mean, it's just awful to hear.
I remember seeing this really quickly in Portland when this was going on. Portland was giving it up. Portland is 75% white, and that's what we need to remember. But they were standing out there and they were marching in solidarity with Black Lives Matter during that time. And a lot of them, a lot of people were arrested. They said that police force used more than 6,000 times. That's from the Department of Justice in Portland. So we'll see how this case turns out. It may set a precedence on how other cases go after this. Yeah.